Today's topic is called What is Company Culture Really? And we're going to have Matt discuss the history of the term company culture, and then also 8 incredible organizational values that businesses can implement to gain the full commitment of their team members. With that, we're just going to jump right into here so we can get the show on the road, and I'll give a quick bio about Matt R. Vance, our presenter. He is the CEO of Mobrium. He's the co-host of a podcast called the Culture Profit Podcast, and he is the author of an award-winning book titled The Review Cycle. So with that, we're just going to turn the time over to Matt and let you get after it, Matt.
Hey, thanks, Ty, and thanks everyone for being here and for your patience with our very first time using Trainer Central. Most of that was user error, I think, on my side, so apologies there. But super excited to get started today, and this is one of the funnest topics. Company culture has a lot of buzz around it. There's lots of fluff there, and so our goal today is to talk about the history of where that term first came into existence and kind of the historic nature there of some of the first elements of company culture theory, and then we can open it up for conversation and questions and talk about if we agree or if we feel there's anything different here. I've got a couple things that I've already added that I think are more relevant to today's workforce. So with that in mind, just want to also give a reminder that this is a SHRM PDC eligible training. So after, on the follow-up, you'll get the code to claim those training credits from attending today's event. So what is culture? There's lots of definitions. Just want to open it up to you guys. Feel free to either shout this out or put your answer in chat, but how would you define culture? There's lots of different types of culture, right?
Maybe how people interact with each other.
I like that. That's a super good definition, Emily.
I was going to say, like,
as well.
I was thinking maybe the social norms of how we interact with our surroundings, both like people and our environment.
Okay, people and environment, the way we interact. I like that. Fantastic. Well, there definitely are a lot of different types of culture: pop culture, more geographic culture, familial culture.
In there in a little bit. Thank you.
What was that? Oh, we've got some comments there. Okay. So we also don't want to forget these types of culture: cell culture and yogurt culture. Don't want to leave out any cultures here in today's discussion. But here are a couple of my favorite definitions on Wikipedia. Culture is an umbrella term which encompasses the social behavior and norms found in human societies, as well as the knowledge, beliefs, arts, laws, customs, capabilities, and habits of the individuals in these groups. Another definition: the characteristic features of everyday existence, such as diversions or a way of life, shared by people in a place or time. So cultures can change. Really, it's the social norms in a group. So what is company culture? Now, if we think about this from a big picture, we spend a lot of our lives at work. It's estimated that about 1/3 of our lives, 90,000 hours, are spent at work over a lifetime. And so a lot of our time is spent. Jessica, I see you shaking your head there. Yeah, it's a lot of time. Like, this isn't supposed to be the depressing conversation here, but the reality is we spend a lot of time at work and we interact with other people at work. So yes, there are social norms that happen in the workplace that are different than happen at home or in the community. And so there's definitely value in defining and understanding company culture norms. And this is one of my favorite definitions from Investopedia. They're talking about the beliefs and behaviors of employees and management. So really, the different stakeholder groups at play in company culture are the people at work. And the types of relationships that we have at work vary from the types of relationships we have at home or in the community. There is an employment agreement in place that we agree to do certain things and the employer agrees to do certain things in return for us. And there are different roles, such as a manager has certain job roles that are different than a team member. And so the way that we interact, that encompasses company culture. So a lot of the times company culture in an organization is implied. It's not typically hard coded or defined. It typically can develop organically over time and evolve as different individuals or team members join a company. Oftentimes I like to think of it as a pool of water. And as you have different individuals join that pool, maybe they change up the chemical makeup of the water, whether it's more acidic or basic in nature, and that changes the chemistry of the overall body of water. And as people leave the organization, you may have some water that's either evaporating or going downstream. That also changes the chemical makeup of the water. So the social norms of our organization can be constantly in flux based on the members that are there in the company and who's coming and going, but also the rules and different things that we have in place. Now, if we talk about why it's important to even care about company culture, there's a lot of research connected to employee happiness and managing expectations in the workplace that points to profitability. Now, we don't really care about that component in other types of culture like family culture or community culture. But when we talk about businesses and company culture, if we cannot be profitable, the company ceases to exist. And so the culture, it doesn't matter, right? But if we can foster positive company culture and maximize employee happiness, we actually can increase profitability, which is a unique objective of groups that operate at a business that is not present at groups in a community or a family. Glassdoor, there have been quite a few studies that Glassdoor has published that show an association with profitability and star ratings and happiness there. There's also increased productivity and less voluntary turnover, which is very costly to organizations as employees find fulfillment in their work. And that spills over to the satisfaction of customers as well. If we think about the type of experience that our team members are providing to our customers, there's definitely a correlation with happiness and satisfaction at work that comes. So there's a clear, practical, and profitable element here for caring about our company culture. So now this is the history portion of the conversation. We're going way back to 1948. Dr. Elliot Jacques, he was a Canadian psychoanalyst, social scientist, and management consultant known for the originating concept of company culture. He also coined the term midlife crisis. He's also credited for coming up with the term fair pay and maturation curves, time span of discretion, and other elements of organizational theory. So about his findings, according to Dr. Elliot Jacques, the culture of the factory is its customary and traditional way of thinking and doing of things, which is shared to a greater or lesser degree by all its members, and which new members must learn and at least partially accept in order to be accepted into service at the firm. In simple terms, to the extent that people can share common wishes, desires, or aspirations, they can commit themselves to work together. It is a matter of being able to care about the same things, and it applies to nations as well as associations and organizations within nations. So he studied this specific manufacturing firm in Europe. It was in England, if I remember right, between 1948 and 1950. And so for 2 years, he literally just observed the social norms of this organization. And that's where he came up with the term company culture. And he talks about finding 8 specific values that he believes must be in place to achieve the highest measure of teamwork, collaboration, and productivity as a team or an organization. So that's what we want to talk about next, is what he found. And I would love to hear your opinions on this after we get through the list of, do you agree with these? Do you think there are other things you would add to the list? So here are his 8 elements, let's see, of requisite organization. So that's the label he gave to these. So Dr. Elliot Jacques came up with this concept of requisite organization, established the list of valued entitlements or organizational values that can gain from people their full commitment. Together, they make an organizational culture or credo. So the first one, psychological safety, that he believes it's requisite to have fair and just treatment for everyone. I'm sure we've all heard of situations where someone's not treated well, someone is rude to their team member or to a peer, or that is essentially breaking one of the requisites of having positive company culture that's required to gain from people their full commitment. If you've heard this idea of discretionary effort, that's the willingness to go above and beyond a job description. You've probably heard people talk about the term quiet quitting. You know, at work, people are only showing up and doing the absolute bare minimum to keep their job. That happens when we don't have these values in place and we don't have a positive company culture. If we want to unlock that level of discretionary effort in our team members that they're not contractually obligated to provide, if we want them to share their best ideas, to collaborate and go above and beyond in their role, we need to have these things in place. So fair and just treatment, leadership, having feedback and recognition coming from the leaders to each team member was another thing that he identified. So in the factory, having the managers giving feedback to line workers on how they're doing, what they could do different and better. Accountability was number 3, clearly articulating what is expected from an employment standpoint. You must do this, 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 and this to have good standing in your employment relationship with the company. Vision, that was something that he also identified. Employees need to see a bigger picture. They need to understand how the company is working together instead of only having their one piece. Like if we talk about the factory and one guy doing one job on the assembly line, if that's the only vision he has, that he's just putting this spring from here to here, he doesn't really have an understanding of how his work contributes to the team's goal. So if the leadership can communicate, hey, we're trying to manufacture this item in this amount of time to hit these goals to deliver to our customers, that helps individuals feel greater meaning in what they were doing. Voice, I'm sure we've all seen this or experienced this, where we feel like we want to share things, but it doesn't matter. The company's just going to do what they want, and they go about telling you what to do. That is going to lead to higher turnover, and it does not gain from people their full commitment. So there needs to be an element of actually receiving feedback from team members in order for them to feel heard and share their best ideas. Talent match, Emily, I'm sure you can relate to this one in your role recruiting. If you hire someone, but the job just isn't a fit, that's a mismatch, right? It's like we put the wrong puzzle piece in the wrong spot. So this is an element that's more individual. For someone to give of their best effort, they have to be aligned with their actual role within the team. And then the last one that he identified was professional growth, that individuals need to feel there's an ability for them to grow, whether that's increasing their knowledge, increasing their skills, increasing their pay, increasing their title and responsibility. Individually, we may have different definitions of what professional growth means, but everyone needs to have some form of growth. And I believe that having one-on-ones can really help managers understand what type of growth their team members are seeking for individually. And then these are the two that I personally observed that I would add to the list. That's a little bit more recent with today's reality in the workforce. Purpose. Individuals, kind of like talent match, we want to be aligned with what the company is achieving in society. Like maybe we don't want to work in that factory because we don't really care that much about industrial design. But maybe like if you've heard of Cotopaxi, they're a retailer of clothing and backpacks and other sporting goods equipment. They're very much focused on doing good on the world and having work, giving work to third world countries. Maybe that's something you're passionate about, and so you feel aligned to work at Cotopaxi, even maybe above your desire to work in the retail space. So the purpose that the company has for existing, aligning with that is really important. And then the last one that I've identified is lifestyle. Especially since COVID, we've seen the rise of, a lot more normalization of remote work and asynchronous work, people working in different time zones, different schedules, doing more with technology instead of in-person meetings. That's something that's also kind of like the talent match, where if someone wants a certain lifestyle and a job doesn't provide that, that's going to be a mismatch. And they're eventually not going to want to give of their discretionary effort and contribute to the company. So just want to open it up here. What's kind of your gut reaction? I mean, these 8 organizational values were established, 70 years ago. Do they still pass the gut check for you? Do you think these additional
I personally would say yes.
Do you have others that you would add that can help?
I interview people every day. That's my whole job. And I go through a portion where I ask them like what they look for in a company culture so that I can give them more information about iFit and if it's a good fit for them. And I think that we touch on every single one of these. And in every conversation I have with someone, they bring up at least the purpose and lifestyle in that conversation, and then various other aspects of these as well.
Yeah, I agree with Emily. Oh.
Love it.
You good? Okay.
Oh, go ahead,
I agree. I think in summary, it's how the employees interact with each other and how they feel about their employer. And I also, when I'm interviewing folks, I'm asking about, what they want in an employer, and go through what our values are and kind of our culture. And one of the other things that people also ask me a lot is professional growth, because they do want to have their own lab one day and be the top PI, the top scientist of the lab. So professional growth is definitely a big one as well. But you're right. Recently, purpose and lifestyle are coming in hot, which is a great thing, but also things that we need to think about.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're smart to kind of front load the conversation to find alignment before someone joins the company, right? And that if we talk about employer branding, showcasing our culture on our career page, on our Glassdoor profile, Indeed, and other places, on LinkedIn, if we can better understand the type of culture we already have, then we can highlight that in our employer branding to attract the people who are most likely to align with the experience that they'll actually have. And then we can minimize the instances of people coming to the company that are misaligned. It doesn't mean that this is like right or wrong, good or bad. It's just matchmaking. We're trying to attract the right people that align with how we operate and our social norms as a company. Any other comments here? Good. Okay, so just as an example, I wanted to quickly show you Mobrium's values. For us to start this journey of creating a stronger culture, the number one thing for us to do is to define it. And sometimes that can be aspirational. We want to have a culture that has this type of a social norm. Other times it's reflective of what we really are. And in our case, when we founded Mobrium 2.5 years ago, we were starting from scratch. There wasn't a pre-existing culture that we had to diagnose and understand first. So this was purely aspirational from the beginning. And then we use this as our guide for hiring and acting as behavioral guideposts for our team to help us know how to act and behave as a team. So we went with the acronym SHINE. We're very focused on employer reputation and online ratings and reviews. And so we've got that star as our little icon. So these are our 5 pillars for creating social norms in our organization. Service, act with kindness and care towards customers and each other. So that's defining very clearly how we, as different groups within this company culture community, we interact with our peers, with our managers, and with our customers. We want to be very service oriented and have kindness in place. So that goes back to psychological safety, right? That's a huge thing. And if we can't have that, that's very much at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need safety, right? And that's very important. So second one, harmony. Play your part, win as a team, and have fun along the way. So we want to recognize that we don't all do the same thing. And it takes individual skills and expertise working collectively to achieve a higher level of winning. And that's also, that element of fun and teamwork in there. Integrity, exercise integrity in all you do, say, and produce. That definitely applies to being honest and truthful. But also we want our products, our service, our commitments to have integrity, that we will do what we say we're going to do, and that we have confidence in the products and services that we put out into the market. Nimble, challenge the status quo, decide and go. That's very much communicating how we make decisions, especially in the startup world. It's better to fail fast and cheap and learn and move on. And so that's the mindset that we adapt for our decision making. And then expertise, trust what you know, research what you don't, and always keep learning. No one knows everything. Things change over time. I was just reading an article before this webinar about company culture and was interested to see there were some elements of change added to this article about COVID and how a lot of companies have taken on a social responsibility for minimizing the spread of COVID as that came about. And we've seen, lasting impacts there. So things change. And so we want to recognize that we don't always know everything and keep learning. So that's just one example of that first step that you can take. Define your company culture, create values, but just putting this up on the wall isn't going to magically give you a strong company culture, right? You've got to have policies that back this up. Your handbook has to be aligned with the values that you're aspiring to. The leadership that you have in place, they have to be bought into this and exemplify those behaviors that you want to then ripple to the rest of your company. And if you see a bad actor who, for example, doesn't have integrity, and you know about it and you keep them in place, well, you're undermining the culture that you're trying to achieve. So keeping that person there can erode the culture efficiency. So that's the whole presentation, but I wanted to just pose a couple reflective questions here and then answer any questions that you guys have about how culture is at your company and how things are going. So how would you define your company's culture, and how is this different than any existing definitions? Like, do you think if your company has an existing mission, values, do you feel like that's actually reflective of the culture in practice? I guess that's what I was getting at there. And then an action item would be go read your employee reviews, tally up the topics that they're talking about, and that will give you a really good view into the practical culture and the values and the social norms that are there, whether it's part of your mission statement and your values or not, you can see what's posted online, and that there's value there in looking at those reviews, in my opinion, even above looking at your survey data, because nobody sees your survey data, but everybody sees your online ratings and reviews. And that's what shapes people's perceptions and behaviors about your organization. So understanding that very unique data set that's coming from your stakeholder group, your team, that's going to be very insightful to help you identify if there are misalignments with the aspirational culture that you're trying to achieve and the actual everyday culture. So just opening it up here, any thoughts or questions? How's culture going at your organization?
I think our culture is really good. We've kind of,
or if you have specific things.
We've kind of changed what our values are as we've changed leadership over the last couple of years. We took some time to do roundtables, and I think that's really helped us define what the culture actually is, rather than just stating like aspirational ideas of what it could be. And I think that's really helpful in our company because it's been around for over 30 years, just really like talking to people at different stages of their career within the company, and then taking in those ideas and then building our values around them.
I love that. Yeah, and as things change, you may find that it merits a change in your stated values and mission, right? But you want to take those things very serious and commit to them when you do make changes. So love that. That's great, Emily. Any specific challenges that anyone's having as far as feeling like maybe they have some bad actors in place and they don't know how to address that, or anything else? Jessica?
One of the things that we're seeing with our company, so we are 40 years old, and we literally have folks that have been here for 40 years. And unfortunately, the way the world goes with science is that there are a lot of older white males here, which they've contributed a lot of great things. But we're starting to see some of them retire, and rightfully so. And so bringing in the new generation and the new wave, there's some uncertainty. Change is hard, whether it's good or bad. And so we're kind of seeing the old folks versus the newer folks, and how we can all work together. One of our biggest things is that collaboration. We build a lot of our tools that we use to study the ocean here on site, which is rare for a lot of oceanographic research institutions. And so we need those brains to work together. And sometimes science and engineers think very differently. So really remembering that, like, at the core, collaboration is how we're going to get things done. But it is interesting to see some shifts that are going to be taking place, especially this year as we get a new CEO, who the previous CEO has been here for 20 years. So.
Holy cow. Yeah, that's a big change. I think that's a great time to essentially do an audit of the social norms and culture and goals, and collect as much employee feedback as you can to inform those things. Anytime you have any member of a leadership team saying, well, I think this, they're probably not getting the whole picture when it comes to this space. Getting the perspective, at least a representative sample of your team, is going to give you so much more weight and information to make more informed decisions. And I think that would be easy to get people bought into in your space, where everybody cares about data in science and engineering. So I think that's super exciting that you've got that coming up.
Yeah, we did an employee survey last year, and I think the plan is to do one next year. Let our new CEO come in for a minute. But in the meantime, I think that there's going to be needing to do maybe some smaller surveys and chatting with folks.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Matt, I've got a question.
Well, sweet. Well, yeah.
Sorry, I really liked
ahead,
Jessica's example that she was giving, and so I think I like how she talked about kind of collaborating between the older and newer generations. I'm wondering, as HR professionals and specialists, you know, there are things that we try and do to affect our company culture, but the effect might not always align with the impact that it has in the actual company culture. And so I don't know if you have any suggestions on, you know, what are some things that HR specialists can control or can try to affect within their company? And then what are some of those things that are maybe out of their control that we just need to let go of and, you know, kind of give people their autonomy to be, do you kind of see that like dichotomy I'm dancing between?
Yeah, I would say, let me just go back to this slide to answer that, Ty. I think HR's role within the company, maybe they're not the ones deciding what the values are or what the mission statement is, or some of the goals or focuses of the company will be for the next year, but they can act as individual professionals and as a department, a safe space for all team members that they serve. So HR, in some sense, is customer service to the employees, right? They're there servicing them. That's the group that they are dedicated to uplifting and supporting. So ensuring that each HR team member and as a department has these things in place as much as possible, they can, one, be an exemplary department in showcasing their leadership and collaboration and psychological safety, and the CHRO can be an example to the HR department in having accountability and leadership and vision and all of these things. So you can be this example department to the rest of the company, but also when people come to you, show that their voice matters, that they have psychological safety, that maybe they don't have the best leadership in their department, but they can feel a measure of that from HR when they're coming and asking questions or need help. Maybe they're acting as a consultant for talent match. Someone comes to you and says, I feel misaligned with where I'm at. And so maybe their manager isn't as equipped to do that. And so HR kind of steps in and says, well, help me understand your professional goals. How do you want to grow? And maybe the HR person then acts as a liaison to the manager to say, hey, this person came to us and here's what we were able to uncover. Let's tag team this a little bit and figure out how we can keep this person here. It's clear they're not aligned in your department, but let's help them get somewhere else and have a plan in place that helps minimize any negative impact for your team and your department with this individual leaving. If we can keep them here in this other department where they clearly fit, then we can work together on backfilling that role in a way that's going to minimize disruption to your team and your department. So I think the HR individuals are uniquely positioned to act as examples to the rest of the company and a liaison to kind of help bridge the gap where maybe leadership isn't as strong in some areas of the company. Does that help,
I actually
Ty?
think those are some really great points. Thanks, Matt.
Okay. So as we're closing up here, just a quick highlight. At Mobrium, we're happy to help you with anything we can. You're welcome to schedule time with us. If you've got more that you want to talk about or certain things that we could help you with, feel free to email us as well. I'll turn it back over to Ty. He can talk about the follow-up and what you can expect just to get additional materials from the call today.
Yeah, this has been great. We want to thank everyone that came to the webinar today. We are going to be hosting these webinars every second Wednesday of the month, and they will all be SHRM PDC credit eligible. So we hope to see you back. Our next webinar will be on March 12th, the second Wednesday of March at this same time. We'll make sure to include all the follow-up information for that webinar in the follow-up from today. If you would like to join us, we will be having the founder and CEO of First 30 on our webinar next month. Her name is Amy Davies, and she's going to be talking about employee onboarding, which is really cool. She's very specialized in this field, so we're excited to get to work with her and have her give some training next month. Make sure to follow Mobrium, follow us on Twitter and on Facebook and LinkedIn to stay up to date with any of the news concerning employer reputation and employer management. And we will look forward to seeing you guys next month.